Today's topic of conversation is my Aussie Grit Mark Webber F1 book review. So this is the first time I've ever done a book review in my life, yet alone a Formula 1 book review. And I've decided to start with Aussie Grit because, well, it's what I was reading, to be perfectly honest. There was no particular reason why I picked this book. It's been lying on my shelves for about a year now, and I've just started now just getting into reading for the first time ever. I'm actually enjoying it. I didn't think I'd ever enjoy it, but the fact that I've found something I enjoy reading, which is Formula 1 books, I thought I'd share with you my thoughts on the books I read and give you my opinion on whether you should purchase them for yourself, give them a read for yourself. So, as I said, this is all very brand new to me, but we'll give it a go because at the end of the day, opinions are opinions. I know some people weren't too happy with mine in my season predictions, but I'm going to do a review of that. Just covering some of the comments in that video. But anyway, today that's not the topic of conversation. Today's topic of conversation, as I said, is my Aussie Grit book review. So, you probably know what it's about. It's Mark Webber's autobiography about his career within motorsport, not just in Formula 1, starting all the way back in Formula 3000 and during his first time with Mercedes in the WEC. The little boy from Kyburn, his struggle pretty much to get into Formula 1 took him so many years to get out of Australia, move to the UK, which he calls his second home, which is why he had such a love for Silverstone, and how he fought into Formula 1, how he linked up with Flavio Briatore, his manager, got his test drive in the year 2000, then with Benetton in 2001, and then finally getting his first F1 start in 2002 at his home Grand Prix for Minardi and picking up that fantastic P5 in his opening race. A great start to his F1 career, although after that it went pretty pot up, I can't deny. Not a great end of the season with Minardi, no shock there, alongside Alex Young, the Malaysian, who was even worse than Webber was in that season. Webber really outshone the Malaysian, but like I say, it was an awful car, back of the grid, really nondescript for Webber apart from that first race. Then he moved to Jaguar for the 2003-2004 season, and it didn't go much better there. Yes, he got his first ever podium in F1, but it wasn't great there either. He then moved on to Williams for the 2005-2006 season. Again, didn't go too great there either, and that was a really interesting part of the book for me. This sort of period before he got to Red Bull, especially his period at Williams, his thoughts during those 2 years, obviously they weren't great, but the whole relationship within the team, the whole relationship with BMW joining up with Williams, that was a fantastic part, and I really would recommend even just online trying to look up his thoughts on the Williams team. Really shocked me, actually. It really did. It really put things into a different perspective about that particular team. Even Jaguar, obviously that was a very different sort of environment because they were a brand new team, really struggling at the back of the field. And to get that podium with them, I'm sure was extremely special for him, but it still wasn't that top level seat he wanted. Then came the big move, which at the time was not a big move, and that was his role in the Red Bull team, working alongside DC, David Coulthard, one of the legends of the sport. Great guy. Obviously the commentator on Channel 4 F1, if you didn't know, but I'm sure if you're watching this you do know who David Coulthard is. But Red Bull, that's when this book gets very interesting indeed. Obviously 07 to 2013 wasn't short of drama now, was it? Obviously he covers all his thoughts about the immersion of Sebastian Vettel during that 2008 and 2009 season. Obviously they had lots going on together even before Seb even joined Red Bull, when Toro Rosso got their first win before Red Bull did, which is very interesting. Obviously he covers as well when Seb went into the back of him behind the safety car after Webber was being sick in one of the races. Obviously I don't want to cover too much, obviously, because I'm trying to encourage you to read the book if possible, but I just want to give you a brief overview of what's going on right now. He also covers, obviously, the big drama with the whole Dietrich Mateschitz. Did I say? Oh, that's such a difficult word to say, isn't it? Anyway, the young driver program at Red Bull. Obviously, Sebastian was part of that, and all of the drivers at Red Bull and Toro Rosso since Sebastian Vettel have been part of that driver program. So it's obviously a very successful program when you see the likes of Vettel, Ricciardo, Verstappen and Carlos Sainz, even Kvyat to a degree, and Gasly now and Hartley getting their chances as well. It's a great system, but obviously Webber wasn't part of that. He was the last Red Bull driver not to be, and in a sense he did get bullied for it. And Mateschitz had such a grip over that team and he still does, and really he shouldn't, and it puts Christian Horner in such a difficult position within the team, because it's a balance of power. Who really has power at that team? Well, it's interesting to see what Webber thinks, and I think he's right. I'm not going to spoil what he thinks. I'm sure you've got your own opinions and you can guess what he thinks, but I think he's right, and I think it's a shame what's happening at Red Bull, and especially during the time that Webber was there. Obviously as well, in 2010, Webber covers the whole "not bad for a number 2 driver" scenario. Great little quote that is, not bad for a number 2 driver. That's the sort of thing you want on your tombstone, don't you? Very, very cheeky indeed from Mark that was, after that 2010 win at Silverstone. And then we had the big one, didn't we? Multi 21, the 2013 Malaysian Grand Prix. He covers all of that, and that really was the breaking point for Mark. I don't think anyone's surprised that was the fact, but it really was. And it was such a shame to see him leave Formula 1, although it did leave the door open for Daniel Ricciardo, who arguably, well, he is a better driver than Mark Webber was. I personally believe that, and I do believe Max Verstappen is as well. So it's a natural evolution of the sport. You know, the guys who are getting on a bit, they move on to better things, and younger drivers move up and take their positions. So it was a natural end to Webber's career, although perhaps not the nicest way. He could have gone out, fallen out with the team almost. Although that final race in Brazil, finishing P2, not awful, but again it would have been nice to see Mark at least pick up one world title. Got so close in 2010 but didn't quite manage it. He even covers that as well, and it's very interesting to see his thoughts on that. Arguably it could be said that he's a bit of a sore loser. So that's a sort of little overview of Mark Webber's career and what he covers in this book. Obviously there's a chapter at the end where he gets his move to WEC, signing with Porsche. He also says that, might be spoilers, not really, it's just like a sentence he says in it, that throughout his career Ferrari were very interested in signing him. And I'm not surprised at that at all, considering the relationship between himself and Alonso, and the fact that Ferrari for several years seemed to be trying to push Felipe Massa out of the team, and obviously in 2014 they did, and it looked like it was between Webber and Raikkonen to see who would get that spot, and whether Raikkonen got it before Webber and Webber saying he didn't want it, or if Webber decided to go to WEC and Ferrari's backup option was Kimi Raikkonen. So very, very interesting indeed. But what's my overall review of this book then? Well, I can tell you that the level of detail in this book is pretty good. It's not faultless, it's not extremely detailed, and I think for a very passionate fan you will generally know all that's going to come up in this book. I certainly did. Nothing surprising, like I say, came up except the Ferrari links. He brought that up quite a few times throughout the book, more than one season, which I thought was quite interesting, and it was a nice read because there were odds bods here and there that you thought, oh, I didn't know that happened behind the scenes at Red Bull. Oh, that was very interesting to see his thoughts on the Williams team. All those sort of things were great. However, sometimes you just got almost a race review and you think, well, that's not what I want this book for. You know, you see his 2009 first win at the Nürburgring, and he just gives you a race review. You know, you're wanting to see what happened after the race, you know, his thoughts while he's driving the car, when really he was just telling you where he was at the time on track, what other drivers were doing on track, which I suppose is a great way of filling the book, but I would have preferred, as a passionate fan, a diehard fan, if it was a little bit more detailed in that sense. But I really enjoyed this book, and the next book that I'm currently on is nowhere near as detailed as this one was at the moment. So in terms of detail, I'll give it a 7 out of 10, a 6 out of 10, that sort of area. We'll finalise that on a 6.5, wee, happy medium. No, I like to deal in absolutes there, so we'll just go with a 6 for detail. because like I say, this is my first book, so it's like the Haas livery, you've got to set a benchmark. So we'll say a 6, and then we can compare other books we do to this one from now on afterwards, so happy days there. His thoughts on Sebastian Vettel were very interesting indeed. However, criticism definitely could be that he was very contradicting at points. You'd sometimes see him praise Sebastian on how such good of a driver he was. I've always been a bit 50-50 on Sebastian's skills, and I think quite a few people have, especially before he got this move to Ferrari, because he was in the best car. But then Webber has the thoughts, obviously because every driver thinks they're number one, they're the best, and that's the mentality you've got to have. And Webber definitely at some times when it suits him to say, he says Sebastian was the best on the grid because he was so far behind. In theory, it's very difficult to work out what was going on. And obviously with that, he has very contradicting thoughts about Christian Horner. Sometimes he felt Horner was bullied, sometimes he felt Horner was a great guy. Very, very difficult, and I think each person that reads this will get a different thing out of Webber's opinions, and I did find them, like I say, slightly contradicting. But I suppose in the world of Formula 1, things evolve so quickly, people change so quickly, it's difficult to have a base understanding and a base opinion on certain people, if you get what I mean, if you understand what I mean. But honestly, I did really, really enjoy this book, and it's definitely got me into reading all about Formula 1, which is what I want to try and push on this channel. I think, like I said several times, reading is such a fantastic skill, and if you can find a topic of conversation that you enjoy, it doesn't have to be odd bod books that you just pick up and read. I don't like that. I don't like just random books by random geezers, even if it's the critically acclaimed best book in the world. I want to read stuff that I want to read, and F1's definitely that. And so I'm going to be doing more of these F1 reviews as often as possible, F1 book reviews, and Aussie Grit was the first one, like I said, I've read, and so I thought, well, chuck it out there and see what people think. But it comes down to the numbers. On this channel I do an out of 10 scoring system, a very basic one. We might review that in the future, but at the moment we're running with the out of 10 scoring system. And what will I give this book? Well, it's a solid book, and it's difficult because I've got nothing to compare it with at this stage. So, that being said, I'm still going to give it a fairly high ranking, and it's going to get a 7 out of 10 for me. Really enjoyed this book, as I've been saying. Definitely opened my eyes about certain things in the sport that I hadn't considered before. Solid, solid book. Not too long, not too short. Solid. Not incredible. Like I say, there were areas that I thought could need improving, but still a solid, solid book. So, the next book I'm currently reading is The Mechanic by Mark Priestley. If you don't know who he is, he was an F1 mechanic for McLaren for many, many years. And it's a different sort of spin because it's not the driver's perspective, and I wanted something a little bit different this time round. So I've gone with that book as opposed to something like Jenson Button's autobiography that he's got out. I've also got Adrian Newey's autobiography that I need to read at some point. So there's plenty of stuff in the pipelines for this. Well, I was going to call it a mini-series, but it's not really. It's going to be an ongoing one, just like the normal review. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this first ever book review. I'm going to leave a link in the description to a few different places you can buy the book. Maybe another review site if I can find one, just in case this didn't give you enough information. And as I say, this is my first book review, so if any of you guys have done book reviews before and have got any advice or anything like that, just chuck it down in the comments below. If you're new around here, we do all sorts of F1, F2 and motorsport news all around the world. If you have enjoyed, remember to like, subscribe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.